Everyone, welcome back to another laptop review, and yes, it's another Ryzen 4000 Series 1, and I'm excited to give you this review here because they have been really good in terms of performance, the new 4000 series. So the MagicBook Pro here that I have was sent out to me from Honor. This one is powered by the Ryzen 5 4600H. Maximum turbo is 4 GHz. It has 6 cores and 12 threads, and as you'll see in this in-depth review, it actually packs quite a bit of power. Now this model here isn't configured with a dedicated GPU, but for a lot of people's needs, the Radeon graphics in this, the Vega graphics with 6 cores, actually does a very good job, and even a bit of light gaming, as you see later on in this video. So the weight of this one here is about 1.7 kilos. It has a metal build to it made out of alloy and a backlit keyboard. We do have, with this particular model, 16 gigabytes of RAM, it's dual channel, and 512 gigabytes of fast NVMe storage. The battery is 56 watt hours, and in my testing will last for around about 7 hours of mixed use. And the screen on this one is 16.1 inches. It is full HD, it's covered with a matte anti-glare coating, and the brightness tops out to just over 300 nits. So in this in-depth review, I'm going to go over the performance. We'll check out just how well that Ryzen 5 performs. And I'll also take a brief look at gaming and even editing 4K video. It's going to be pretty much everything covered in this in-depth review. But let's first have a look at what we get in the box. The laptop comes in a very sturdy box. It's got a lot of good packaging around it, and right here we do have a warranty card, a 65 watt Type-C charger. Now this is a reasonably good size, this one here, and it will take approximately 30 minutes to gain 50% battery and about an hour and 20 minutes to fully charge this laptop. And right here is our Type-C cable, so this one is Type-C to Type-C. The MagicBook Pro here comes in this really nice gray color, so we have the Honor branding right here at the top, and it's quite a simplistic, nice looking design. So this is quite fingerprint resistant up to a certain point, then you do start to see a few little marks on it. So it's a matte painted job that they've given it here, this dark gray color, and pressing down on the lid here, there's very little flex, just a tiny bit there. So if you do put this in a backpack up against some books and things, I don't think you have to worry too much about the screen pressing up against the keyboard. On the left of the MagicBook Pro here, we've got a Type-C port. Now this is full spec video out up to 4K 60Hz, power delivery support, and with the included charger, it takes 30 minutes to get to 50% battery and just over 1 hour and 10 minutes to fully charge this laptop. HDMI 2.0A, so also 4K 60Hz, USB 3.2, this is status LED right here, which is white, and this is flashing when charging and completely on once fully charged. And on the right side here, we have 3.5mm in with microphone support. The quality of this one does sound very good. There's no static or hiss over the line, and another 2 USB 3.2 Gen 1 ports right here. So the thickness of this laptop, measuring right here, is 17mm, and it does weigh 1.7 kilos. So the hinge is quite stiff on this particular laptop, and when I try and open it up with one hand, it's going to lift up a little bit too much, so you do need to use 2 hands to access the keyboard here when lifting up that lid. So nice size touchpad here. It has a very smooth surface to it. It is plastic. It does support Windows 10 gestures, and I find it to be very good. Even with the slightest little tiny movements, it's quite accurate, and it doesn't go all over the place, the mouse cursor with this particular touchpad. So we've got 2 loudspeakers either side right here. They do actually sound good, and they have a little bit of bass to them. Here's a sample. So as you can hear from that they do sound quite good, I find, for this particular laptop. So a power button also acts as a fingerprint reader. It's a good X1, and you can use this for Windows Hello, and that logs you in quite quick. Now this does have a dual stage backlighting on it, okay? So we've got off, and then a lower level and a higher level. Now overall, typing on this particular keyboard is nice. It does have shorter travel though. It's only about 1.1mm to 1.2mm of travel, this particular keyboard. And we do have the arrow keys. We've got 2-in-1 button here with the up and down. And this keyboard, as you can see, the layout is not a US English layout. This one here is German. Unfortunately, that's just all I got with the review unit. But whatever region you buy it in, you will have, of course, the localized keyboard there. The QWERTY one here, not QWERTY. This one here with the Z and the Y are swapped around. But overall, a nice keyboard, very little flex here. And there's no real bounce when typing on this one. I do like it. Now the webcam on this one here, they couldn't actually put it in the top where the top bezel is, just above the screen, which would have been the ideal location here. It is just above the number 7 key. So pressing in, you will see it pops up. And here is a sample now of that webcam, exactly what you can expect, its quality, and also the microphones from this laptop. So of course, where it's located just above the number 7 key here, that this is pointing up my chin the whole time, kind of up your nose. It's not a very flattering position here, and I really hope that Honor next time can place the webcam in the typical normal kind of location. If they can put it in that top bezel, that will be so much better than where it currently is. Now overall, this quality I would rate as average. It's nothing wonderful, and the microphones at the front here, they do pick up my voice quite well, and it is clear and loud too. So that's one positive, having the microphones closer at least. It doesn't struggle at all to capture your voice clearly. So the underside of the laptop here, we have a nice raised rubber foot here at the back. There's another one here at the front. This here is our intake vent, and we have torque screws all around that are holding this rear lid in place. And down here we do have two microphones. There's two little holes here you can see. So removing that lid was not too difficult. I removed all the torque screws. They are T5 in size and all the same size, which does make things a little easier. And then I just pried it off from the back right here. So we have two copper transfer heat pipes, one larger one connected up to the larger fan, as you can see, a smaller fan right here. Thermals will be covered in depth and detail later on in this video. I'll take a look at the keyboard temperatures and of course the internal temperatures to see exactly what it gets up to. So we do have what looks like a 2.5 inch drive bay here, but sadly there is no SATA 3 connector. So this particular configuration, we don't have that option here, and there's no additional slot to add another SSD. Our SSD is right under here, so if you're not happy with 512 gigabytes, you can then install, say, 2 terabytes or 4 terabytes. And just under here, we do have an upgradable Wi-Fi card. So if you're not happy with the Realtek, the 8822CE that it has in here, which doesn't support wireless 6, then you can upgrade that with, say, the Intel AX200, and that is Wi-Fi 6, and it's much quicker. And then the battery, this capacity is 56 watt hours, and it would have been nice if this battery was also an additional cell to take up this free space right here, giving us a little bit more in terms of battery life. And as it stands in my testing so far, this battery will last for about 6.5 to 7 hours, which is general kind of work with the wireless on. And if you're watching just video, then it's going to be close to about 10 hours then. So it's not actually bad, the battery life on this particular laptop. And then there are the two speakers right here either side. The build quality is excellent. There is an internal metal frame. Everything is screwed in place. Overall, a very high quality build here. So when you first get this laptop, you will be greeted with the following wallpaper and two applications that are pre-installed. So one is a user guide, the other is called PC Manager. So this could actually be handy because under this, there is a health check for this laptop. But if you look at managed drivers, it does have an update system here for keeping you up to date with all of the various different drivers of this particular notebook here. And I've run this and I have updated the drivers. There were 3 that I had to update. So that's good. So let's have a look at the device manager here, what exactly we have in terms of hardware. So the fingerprint reader there that is incorporated into the power button is a Goodx fingerprint reader, and this is used for Windows Hello, so you can scan your finger and get into Windows a little bit faster than typing out a password. Our webcam, so that pop-up webcam that I showed you before in that awkward kind of location, that is an OmniVision webcam. And our drive here is Western Digital. This is the SN730. And these are the speeds. I've just benchmarked this without anything going on in the background, of course. So very good read speeds, and the sequential writes, maybe not the fastest out there, but for a 512 gigabyte drive, I mean, it's all right. It's pretty good. That's quite a fast drive. But they're separated into data right here, which is 341 gigabytes, and Windows here 82 gigabytes. You may not like this, but you could actually merge those two partitions into just a single drive if you wanted to do so. So the wireless card on here is a weak point of this laptop. You can see they've got the Realtek 8822CE, and this is just wireless AC. It's just a 1x1 antenna setup. This particular model here has Bluetooth 4.2. So really, I think Honor should have put the Intel AX200 in here with its Bluetooth 5.1. And they do actually bundle what they call the Honor Router 3, which is Wi-Fi 6. Now, Wi-Fi 6 router bundled with this, but then our wireless card isn't Wi-Fi 6. So that's why I think they should have put the AX200 in there. A wireless 6 card would have been much better. Jumping in now to some benchmarks that I've run on this particular laptop that I like to run through. So Cinebench R15, this is a very good score here for the 6 cores. The 6 cores is getting close to some of the performance of what was Intel's top-of-the-line laptop chips here. So for example, the Core i9 the 9880H is only slightly faster than this particular 6-core with the 12 threads. So really good performance there. That's Cinebench R15 and Cinebench R20 as well. Also ran that one, and we're getting a score that's just over 3,000, so close to 3,200. Now, to put this into perspective with the Ryzen 7, the 4800H, that one you can get over 4,500 points there. So this is a little bit behind because we're missing out, of course, on 2 cores and an extra 4 threads with that particular model there. But overall, I mean, this is really good performance for a 6-core chip here. It does perform well. Diskmark is another benchmark that I did run here. So you can see that result there, 4,474 points. So if you have a similar laptop at the moment, you can download these particular tests here, run it on your own system to compare the kind of performance difference if you were thinking of getting this one here, that is. And I've got Geekbench as well. So Geekbench 5, very good score again, over 6,000 points here for the multi-core score. Again, I just will show you briefly here the score of the Ryzen 7, the 4800H. You can see that one has a much higher multi-core score. And the single-core score difference there isn't actually much. Look at this difference. It's only 90 points between the Ryzen 4600H and the 4800H. Also did run Night Raid, so Night Raid just testing out the integrated graphics. So that's the 6 cores of the Radeon graphics here, and a very good score there for the graphics. That is not actually bad at all. So that's something like the dedicated 2 gigabytes of the MX250 from NVIDIA that we often see in some of these laptops. It's very kind of similar performance here, and the graphics score here too as well of just over 3,000 with Firestrike. So for high-end kind of titles, it's not that great, but you'll see I will test out gaming soon in this particular in-depth review. So just a few other things I wanted to point out, that for video playback on this particular machine, that it is excellent. So very demanding, 140 megabit per second files, 4K. You see now, run just fine on this particular model here. Not a problem. And we do have the 4K output as well from the Type-C port and the HDMI that I was talking about earlier when we looked at those ports. And even a 4K HDR sample here. Although this screen is not an HDR screen, we can still run a 60 frames per second demanding 4K file without it even breaking a sweat. No problems. I'm not even hearing the fan come on for those kind of minor little tasks right there. So next up, we'll take a look at some Adobe Premiere Pro video editing in 4K performance and export times. So when you take a look at the timeline here, it is relatively quick here, moving about, not too much of an issue. The playback here at 1/4, this is smooth, which is great, but the performance won't be the same as having a dedicated GPU. Even with, say, a GTX 1650, I have noticed that video editing, especially with 4K in Adobe Premiere Pro here, is a lot smoother. When you have to cut back on things, you have to do different transitions. I noticed it just seems to be a bit better with a dedicated GPU, so that's why I always tend to go for a dedicated GPU. However, this performance is not bad at all, okay? So I'm going to do my typical test edit now, and that is an export of the YouTube 4K preset, 1 minute of footage, and I'll time and see exactly how long it is going to take on this machine. Okay, so we've got 2 seconds left, and as soon as the 100% bar disappears, so there we go. That's about approximately, you can say, 53 seconds. So under 1 minute to export 1 minute of footage in Adobe Premiere Pro is not bad at all. That's a very good result here. So one area out of many that this laptop shines, and that is gaming performance. This is from the integrated Radeon graphics with just the 6 cores. The maximum GPU turbo is 1500 megahertz. And we've got a really good, respectable frame rate here with GTA 5 1080p, and I've got it set to the normal settings. The population density and everything else is set to medium. Now, there was just a bit of a frame rate right before, but I don't know what that was about. But overall, this performance is really quite impressive. I think it is really good considering, again, that this is integrated. You get this similar kind of performance from, say, the NVIDIA MX 350 or 250 with its 2 gigabytes of dedicated RAM. Now, this does have 2 gigabytes of RAM that is allocated. It's shared memory, of course, with the system memory. And when we looked at the internals, you cannot upgrade the memory on this one. So very, very good performance here. It's staying around 50 frames per second at the moment, with peaks up to about 80 frames per second, and about the lowest I've seen it dip to is under 40. So overall, this is excellent. Let's have a look at another title, something a little more demanding. So this is The Witcher 3 here. Now I've got it set to the low preset. This is on the 720p, the resolution. And you can see we're getting, I feel again, a very respectable frame rate. Again, for integrated graphics, this performance is great. 40 frames per second here. Now you'll be getting similar kind of frames per second, maybe a little higher on, say, the MX 350 from NVIDIA. Slightly better performance, but they're really quite similar to what we are seeing right here. So this is great to see that at least this title on 720p, yes, and the lower settings, it still is playable on a laptop like this. If you wanted to do a little bit of gaming, of course, on the side, not just business only or work only, but a little bit of gaming. So here is a sample of what the fan noise does sound like. This is almost 100% low, but when gaming, so you're seeing temperatures now of around 60 degrees, and you will hear that fan just constantly. It's not that loud. It's nothing like a gaming laptop. There's a bit of a high-pitched whine to it, but here is a sample. So if you're wondering just how loud that is, it's about 43 decibels, which is not bad at all considering it's running Witcher 3 at the moment. Okay, so just how hot is it getting? Well, 96.1 degrees Celsius is the hottest I saw internal temperatures. This only lasted for about 2 or 3 seconds, and that was when I was stress testing with Cinebench 20 that it hit this. It then goes down into the mid-80s, and I find overall the temperatures, apart from this little spike, the temperatures are actually quite good on this machine. You saw just before gaming that when gaming it sits around 65 degrees to 70 degrees, and the fan's running about 80%, and overall that is good. Now, what about power consumption? So at the wall, measuring at the wall, the peak I have seen has been 64 watts is what it's pulled, the maximum. And at idle, so at idle, you're looking anywhere between about 8, 9, and 10 watts at idle. So overall, I think thermals internally, yes, it spikes at 96 degrees Celsius, which I don't particularly like to see. But overall, in general, very good fan noise. And surface temperatures, so the middle of the keyboard does get a little hot. It gets up to around about 39 degrees. And where the hot air vents out just in front of the screen, you will see temperatures there of about 40 degrees Celsius. So that's actually fine as well. That's quite good because I do see some laptops getting up to 45, 46, and 47 degrees under the same exact conditions when pushed hard. And I also sent out their router 3. So this particular new router model from them does have Wi-Fi 6 support and up to 3000 megabits per second throughput rates maximum. And I've been able to get about 1500 with my Wi-Fi 6 enabled devices. Now this laptop, as I've shown you, doesn't actually have a Wi-Fi 6 card. But if you did happen to install one in it, you can get really fast transfer speeds. Range seems good. It's got a great build quality, and there are 4 LAN ports on the rear of it, so it can be used like a normal router as well. Okay, so let me just quickly recap here. In my week now of using this particular model, I think it's an all-rounded great performer. I mean, look at those performance figures that we are getting, say, Cinebench for this type of laptop to be able to actually better some of Intel's 8 cores with the 16 threads. For example, it was the Core i9, the 9880H. This particular Ryzen 4600H, bettering almost bettering it in Cinebench, that is. In other performance like Geekbench 5 was very good. And even the graphics performance, this is where I think the Vega does a really good job here. So we've got the Vega graphics, and that is just with the 6 cores in this particular configuration, but it does perform really quite well. I mean, look at that. We had GTA 5 with a very playable frame rate on just the normal settings in 1080p. And surprised to see Witcher 2. Witcher will run around 30 frames per second, up to about 40, 45 frames per second, depending, of course, where you are on the map. 720p with a low setting is impressive when you consider, of course, as I mentioned, that this is integrated graphics. It doesn't have, say, an NVIDIA MX 350 in here, but it's getting similar kind of performance to that, which is really good. Now you can edit 4K video as I showed you on this. Don't expect stellar performance when you have huge edits like I do, with my reviews being like 20 minutes long. I did edit one of them on here, and it does get a little bit slow at times there just with those massive edits. But for general kind of computing needs, this is going to cover the bases, I believe, for almost everyone, apart from those that of course want to play AAA titles on high settings with a playable great frame rate, this is not like a gaming machine at all for that, but as mentioned, the Vega graphics does perform really well. So battery life, in my experience with my testing mixed use at a lower kind of brightness of around about 180 nits, which is about 40 to 30%, it's going to go for around about 7.5 hours of mixed use. So that's Chrome, documents, watching a few movies and things like that. Now, if you straight out just watched movies, then this battery would actually go for about 10 hours. So I did find it to be better than the Ryzen 7 4800H that I've also reviewed in the channel. And then this chassis, good build quality to this. It has great loudspeakers. The keyboard travel is only about 1.1 millimeters. It's not a lot, but overall when I've been typing on this, even though of course it's the German layout, that it has actually been a pleasant experience and it's a good keyboard. So when this of course has a US layout that I'm more used to, I would definitely have no issues with this keyboard typing on it. Touchpad works fine, Windows 10 gestures there. And it takes about just an hour and 20 minutes or so to fully charge. So overall, it is very, very good, but of course, not perfect. No laptop out there is. The webcam location, having it here, the pop-up camera is not the best. So it's not a flattering position to have, like looking straight up your nose. If you're gonna type on the keyboard, your hands get in the way. And I really hope the next model, they can locate it right here up the top. And I'm pretty sure they'd be able to do that. The other thing that I don't understand at all is the biggest con is the wireless card. Why on earth did they put a Wi-Fi 5 spec card in here, wireless 5 instead of wireless 6? I mean, they're selling their newer routers now, the router 3 from Honor, which is wireless 6 with up to 3000 megabits per second transfer rates, yet they put a slow card in here. But luckily, if you don't mind opening up a laptop, if you do remove the rear on it, you need to remove all of those Torx screws, then you can upgrade that card to, say, the Intel AX200, which is then, of course, wireless 6 spec. So I highly recommend doing that if you intend to, or you want to get those really, really fast speeds. Other things which are minor, well, they could have put maybe a larger battery in this because there's a bit of free space. I would have liked to have seen maybe, say, 90 watt hours or up to 80, and we would have been able to get maybe then 10 hours of solid just work time on that, which would have been even better. The other thing too, no upgradable RAM. Now I did expect this, so when I showed you the internals, we couldn't actually add more RAM. So if you wanted to, for example, swap out the 16 and put 32 in, sadly you cannot do it with this. But overall, great machine. Really love my time using this particular lone unit here from Honor. And thank you so much for watching this review, and I do hope to see you back in the next one.